I'm Katina from Flamboyance Tours, and thank you very much for choosing to walk with me today. I'll be taking through some of the key landmarks of Adelaide in 5 minutes, according to the city's timeline. We start our story in 1836, and that's when the British colonised Adelaide as the capital of South Australia. At that time, we were a free settlement, which meant that no English prisoners were brought here for the purpose of labour. This was different to every other capital city in Australia, so people could live here of their own free will, and we were a very prosperous city as a direct result of that. Behind me is the Adelaide Town Hall, built in the 1860s, but the Adelaide Town Hall still holds all of our major council meetings today, so all of the key city decisions are made right here. You've also got the beautiful function space on the top level. I love to mention this because there is an organ in there worth more than $1 million Australian dollars. It's incredible. You can access it on one of their tours. They do usually run a tour once a week. You just have to check their website for details. So we've made it to the Adelaide Central Market, and this spot is actually 150 years old. It's been here since 1869. There are two separate parts. You do have the arcade, which has more generic sort of stuff like your Coles supermarket, chemist warehouse, etc. But then when you keep walking straight, you hit the market. It actually creates the largest undercover fresh produce market in the southern hemisphere. The beautiful Adelaide Oval would come soon after in the year 1871. Traditionally a cricket ground, but these days host to many concerts and other sports during the year. So welcome to the Adelaide Arcade. Isn't it just a beautiful building? It's actually the first of its kind in Australia. So when this was built in 1885, we hadn't seen anything like it before. It was unprecedented for its time, and we were definitely very excited about it when it arrived. We, of course, had taken our inspiration from the arcades of the United Kingdom, where in those cities they had arcades such as this in really large abundance. So you've got the Victorian era style architecture. It's very much a product of its time. It was only 50 years into the history of the British rule. So, and a lot of people had come from across the world. They felt a bit homesick, and this was their sense of familiarity. It was a sense of feeling like home when they would see a place such as this. But not only that, we were also a very prosperous city at that time. By the 1880s, we had a lot of money in the state coffers. Well, I shouldn't say the colonies' coffers, as South Australia was still a colony then. But at that time, we did want to show our prosperity, and this was quite possibly the best way to do it. The Adelaide Railway Station is, I guess, what you could call our central station, but this isn't the first version that you see. The first was from the 1850s, and back then it was a lot smaller than this to go with the size of our city at that time. This is what I call version 2.0. In the 1920s, an American man named William Webb commissioned the design for this building. 2 architects later, 6 years of building later, we get this in the year 1928. We are now on North Terrace, an extremely important street within the city centre, not least because we have a lot of key institutions along here. You've got 2 sides to it. You've got the governmental precinct and also the cultural precinct. 1883, that's when they start building Parliament House here, and for 6 years they build the West Wing, so it's just the left half of the building. They obviously wanted to keep going, but in 1889 that prosperity we'd really built up over the first 50 years of British settlement, it all came crashing down. So we don't get that second half built, that right hand half, until 1939. It is completed and unveiled 50 years to the day of when the West Wing, the left half, was unveiled. Some key landmarks came even as late as the 1970s, where the Festival Centre is one such example, completed in 1973. This was the first multi-purpose arts venue completed in Australia, and it still hosts a number of events today, from festivals through to musicals and also concerts. Randall Mall, where we stand now, was actually a road once upon a time. In 1976, this becomes a pedestrianised mall, and it's actually the first of its kind in Australia. The mall's balls was placed here in 1977. Officially it's called the Spheres, but we call it the mall's balls for very obvious reasons. 2 balls in the middle of Randall Mall. When most Adelaideans think of Adelaide, this sculpture immediately comes to mind. It's a meeting point. It's a place of reference for people. So when we don't know where to meet someone, we will just say to each other, you know what, let's just meet at the balls. And And that is a quick look at Adelaide's timeline through key landmarks. Thanks for watching. We have multiple tours and services which you can find more information about by visiting our website, flamboyancetours.com.au. And don't forget to follow us across social media too so you can stay connected with what we've got going on.